First of all, thank you for the warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, dear colleagues, it is a great pleasure to be here with you today. Amongst experienced humanitarians, development workers, researchers and politicians. People with deep and solid experience from one of the world's most complex crises. Today's crisis is very timely because Afghanistan is at a crossroad with a historic opportunity for peace. Timely because today marks the 19th anniversary at the devastating attack on the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center, which essentially led to Denmark's identified involvement in Afghanistan. Denmark's support to Afghanistan is based on the following narrative. Firstly, securing peace, stability, and long-term development. Secondly, minimizing the risk of international terror. Thirdly, preventing irregular migration and strengthening repatriation. From the beginning, Denmark has taken on a major responsibility to support the people of Afghanistan. For years, the country has been the largest recipient of Danish development assistance. We have allocated close to $1 billion in development assistance alone. Our assistance has covered key areas including reforms, anti-corruption, human rights, gender equality, education, security, peace building, and reintegration of internally displaced people and refugees returning to Afghanistan. We have also provided life-saving support to the most vulnerable people. Our soldiers have worked closely with Afghan partners and other NATO allies to support development towards a peaceful and prosperous Afghanistan. If you ask me, have we achieved all the results that we hoped for? I'm afraid the answer is no. But important progress has been made in the last 19 years. For example, access to primary health care has increased from 9 to more than 57%. Life expectancy has increased from 44 to 61 years. Maternal mortality has decreased by almost 80%. More than 8 million students are enrolled in schools and 39% are girls. Water supply coverage has increased substantially, also thanks to DACAAR. Freedom of press and women's role in politics and administration have increased substantially. In other words, the picture is far from all negative. We have jointly made a difference under complex circumstances. We can be proud of that. But let me be honest. Massive challenges remain. Widespread poverty and armed conflicts continue. The institutions, the governance structures, and the legal system are too weak and dysfunctional. These challenges prevail in all fragile countries that are challenged by conflict and instability. The truth is, in many ways, progress has not been in proportion to our investments. For too long, many Afghan leaders have misused our support. Widespread corruption being the prime example, this continues to be one of the major obstacles to improving the lives of ordinary Afghans. Our efforts have also come at a cost. Many of our soldiers have paid the ultimate price. I too have sometimes asked myself, was it worth it? But then I remember the millions of Afghan girls now in school. The women who can now participate in public life. The people who can now more freely express their views and elect their leaders. And therefore, my answer is yes. Today, Afghanistan is at a crossroad. The US-Taliban agreement, the release of prisoners, the planning and hopefully soon beginning of intra-Afghan negotiations, an Afghan-led and Afghan-owned process which we hope will lead to a sustainable peace agreement and end decades of warfare. But, of course, the situation can still move in different directions, from a more stable Afghanistan all the way to renewed civil war or a takeover by Taliban. Within this uncertain context, we have to decide future support to Afghanistan. This is by no means an easy task. And I know that I'm going to disappoint many of you because today I cannot give you an exact figure on Denmark's future assistance to Afghanistan. Because as we speak, there are a number of essential processes going on. Firstly, we have just started the process of negotiating the government proposal for the 2021 Danish Finance Act. Secondly, our work on a new overall strategy for Danish development policy will soon begin. It will begin just around the next year. Thirdly, an international donor conference will most likely take place in Geneva in November. The whole international community is now discussing and coordinating the best ways to support Afghanistan moving forward. We also have to factor in a possible scenario that Taliban has part of the government structure. For Denmark, it is essential that the progress we have made is maintained and further developed, especially in the area of gender equality, education for girls, reintegration of refugees, anti-corruption, etc. Future support will be closely linked to the government's ability to maintain key results. The EU has recently developed a document which clearly states our principles for future assistance. We have to uphold our red lines, our zero tolerance, especially regarding corruption. We need to justify spending Danish taxpayers' money. Business as usual is not an option. We know the situation is complex. We know the challenges are still massive. We know that substantial progress is lacking in a number of areas. But Denmark remains committed to Afghanistan and the Afghan people. We will work with the international community in support of a peaceful, stable and prosperous Afghanistan. We will not forget Afghanistan. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for your speech, Minister. We came around a lot of important issues. Among them, I noticed that no, we had not obtained all what we wanted. We are very proud of our efforts. Maybe we will find a mass conflict in Afghanistan. We have problems with misuse of our support. Was it worth it? Yes, it was, you said. But on the other hand, however, you could not point out exact figures about whether the assistance to Afghanistan will go up and down. However, 2 days ago in Altinget we could read that Africa will have a high priority and some of the money should be taken from Asia in Afghanistan, Myanmar and Bangladesh. According to the government's proposal for the Fiscal Act 2021, it's in total 364 million Danish kroner so far. But first, after a year where the programs in Afghanistan are prolonged. So my question is, depending on the quite chaotic development in Afghanistan you also describe in your speech, could we be in another place for that decision in a year?
Of course we can. Mm-hmm. I would like to start by saying that to prioritize is always very difficult. And even if I had the chance to use the whole national budget of Denmark in development aid, I would not be able to solve all the problems in the world. So it's very difficult to prioritize, and my task is to focus on some of the government's main priorities. And therefore, I think we have to discuss, shall we just continue business as usual? And as I just said, business as usual is not an option. And because we have so many processes going on, there is negotiations about peace with Afghanistan going on. We have the Finance Act going on. We also have an upcoming discussion on the strategy for Danish development aid. And therefore, we have decided to continue with the already existing land program. So it will just have an extra year. And we will use that year to discuss how will we do another and perhaps better, but perhaps also more focused country program. When I end my speech by saying that we will not forget Afghanistan and the Afghan people, because I believe in it. And there is no option that Denmark will withdraw 100%. We will be there and continue to help and support. But we will use this year to discuss how can we do our support better and more focused. And I'm sure if I have a slightly tendency to forget something about Afghanistan, then I will have very eager spokesmen and women from other parties remember me to focus on Afghanistan.
Yes.
And I know, for instance, Rasmus Prehn sitting down here, he is very eager not to forget the whole Asia and many others. And there's also the NGOs. So I will remember to focus here as well. Yeah. But it's a difficult task.
Talking about business as usual, and you will not forget Afghanistan, you said, but we can be in a complete different situation in 1 year from now. One of the scenarios we heard earlier today from our military expert, David Vestenskov, was that one of the three scenarios was that Taliban was in fact taking completely over. And then we have a new situation. But if you look at that, what would you say? Should we stay in Afghanistan during a Taliban regime and try to get the best out of it? Or how should we react?
Yeah, first of all, I cross my fingers for that not to happen. But it's very difficult to forecast what would happen. And therefore, I think I should also be a little bit concerned not to go into that discussion, because we have to look what is the concrete situation. And I believe there will be some way to be active and to support, even though Taliban is in power. But it's definitely not what I hope for. No. And I hope there's chances to stop that before it happens. And of course, as minister responsible for the whole development aid, I of course have to be sure that the money is going to something that I can argue for.
You have to look the taxpayers in the eyes afterwards.
Exactly.
Yes.
And but I could imagine NGOs and others still working, and humanitarian help still needed. So therefore, I think we will continue being supporting Afghanistan also in the future.
Yeah, but not the Taliban.
Of course not the Taliban.
Okay, right. There's one thing if you talk about the current situation. As you might know, there's been a huge government crisis for months. They couldn't agree on which one should be the president. There were accusations of fraud during the presidential election. Apparently, the government crisis should have been over by now, but it's not. They have not appointed all their ministers yet, and it still seems to continue. And we are in a situation where the international community shall negotiate with the Afghan government in Geneva here in late autumn, and you also have to deal with an Afghan government that is so divided. But do you see it as a credible partner to negotiate with the Afghan government?
It's a necessary partner. Mm-hmm. And that's the name of the game in many ways when you have to deal with fragile countries. Mm. It could be so easy to say that if you have problems with corruption and if you have governments that you don't trust 100%, then you can just stop sending money. Mm. But then the problems will continue. Yeah. And therefore it's a part of this job to insist of having some kind of relation. And in that relation, build up some kind of hope and direction towards something better. And we have zero tolerance towards corruption. And we are addressing that all the time. I can see that our former ambassador in Afghanistan is sitting down here. And he
right, he's on the stage afterwards.
And he will tell about how he is working on daily basis to emphasize towards the government what the aim is for the Danish government and what we will not tolerate. So we are very keen and focused to keep them on track.
Yeah.
But as I started with, it's the name of the game that in this kind of fragile countries we have sometimes to deal also with partners that is with some problems.
Yeah. I don't know what you would say if you met Ashraf Ghani, but as I understand it, you have not been in Afghanistan so far. Unfortunately not. But are you planning a trip to Afghanistan as a minister?
We have discussed it, and it's definitely on the list.
It's on the list.
Now we have a situation.
Which date?
Now we have a situation with the COVID-19.
Yes.
And therefore we have very restricted travel rules. But we would look into it, and I'm very curious towards Afghanistan. And I have many things to learn. Even though our very competent ambassador have filled me in with knowledge, I think it's a good idea to travel and visit myself.
Yes.
And I'm very humble towards this whole country and the whole history, and I know that I have many things to learn.
Thank you very much, Minister. Unfortunately, it's not in the Minister's calendar to take questions here from the audience, but there might be some journalists that want to grab you on the doorstep on the way out, then you have to hurry. Yeah. But from here, I would say very much thank you for being here and give us some very useful information. Thank you to Rasmus Prehn.
Thank you so much.